to fewer rules for you to manage. So having that rich tool that allows you to create, very complex policies will ultimately lead to less rules to process, rather than allow this port. You can build up these quite coherently. We can utilize the other two aspects there. So looking at service tags, they're really powerful labels that we can attach to a group of IP addresses. So we can say, look, this is a marketing application, or this is a finance application, all the traffic that goes source destination over this port. We know what this is for, so we can start applying some logic to that, which helps remove the blank data that's just chucked at us where we don't understand potentially. That also allows us to create application security groups where we can group resources that applications use, and it allows us to understand, okay, anything that HR uses, this will fall within the HR security group, using certain traffic types. I don't know, it could be port 80, port 8080, or 443, whatever it is that they're actually accessing as well. Moving on to the Azure Firewall. So the Azure Firewall, as the top line dictates there, is a managed cloud-based security network security service that protects all of the Azure resources, network resources. It's stateful firewall as a service. Sorry, dog, be quiet. And it has built-in high availability and unrestricted cloud scalability. So let's break that down to what that actually means, because Microsoft like chucking terms like that out there. So it's a managed firewall. That means you can configure it, you can manage it as per your requirements. If you want to turn on natting or tunneling or some filtering to achieve a goal, then you can do that, and you can enforce and manage that device. It's cloud-based, so that's quite self-explanatory. It's delivered as a service. Microsoft deliver this as an SLA-backed service. Inherently, it provides high availability and cloud scale because it's built by Microsoft using high availability regions and utilizing cloud scale. But behind the scenes, it removes the need for you to start clustering, setting up failover groups, having to worry about maintenance, patching, vulnerabilities, updating the operating systems and things like that, because this is all removed. It's delivered as a service. It's taken care behind the scenes by Microsoft, all delivered to an SLA as well. Traditionally, you'd use a firewall to kind of protect your boundary, to act as that conduit between you and the outside world where all the nasties live. But equally, you can deploy firewalls within your environment where an NSG doesn't quite do what you're trying to achieve. Having an in VNet firewall can bring significant benefits to segregating and protecting some more sensitive or controlled resources within Azure as well. Just want to pick a few of the features out on the left. I'm going to go through them all because we'll be here for days. Probably just the service tags, like the NSGs previously, being able to identify what services are running, what traffic's being run, allows humans to understand at a greater degree of, rather than just packets going from left to right. Once we start tagging them, once we start building intelligence, it allows us to start understanding them a bit more, making management a lot easier for you and your teams. Threat intelligence is probably a really key point for Azure Firewall as well, and how that links in with the monitoring. So Azure Monitor logging, having metrics that are chucked out is great. It's good that we're understanding metrics, but we don't want them just to sit in a repository. We want to actively triage them and present you with potential threats and risks to your organization. So using threat intelligence in conjunction with Azure Monitor and potentially with Azure Security Center, I think we come onto that towards the end, will really give you that rich tapestry of what threats are exposed to your organization at what time and how to mitigate it as well. We'll just quickly go into some best practices that we've got. These are both Microsoft and Cloud Direct best practices that they're probably not new to a lot of you out there that have been in the game for some time. Like the previous one, I'm just going to kind of go into a couple of these without going into them all. I think the zero trust approach is a wise approach for anything, not just networking actually. So ensuring that you don't trust anything, assume everything is bad, is a good approach, and making sure that trust and access is a privilege and it's delegated and managed rather than it's just assumed. Just because I'm a member of a domain doesn't mean I have access to resources. It's a privilege that I need to request, and that how I go about requesting that is defined by the security frameworks and access frameworks that I have around it. If I need to have access to a resource, then I should have access to a resource to do my job, but not just because I sit within a group that other people have access to. So hopefully that makes sense, that a zero trust approach should be adopted everywhere. Which other ones so we should look at? So routing and peering. So which one would that be? Yes, control routing behavior. Making sure you know where your traffic is and where it's flowing and who has access to it, and where you want traffic to be and where you don't want traffic to be. So broadcasts, you name it, the type of traffic that's out there. Most of us are using Windows devices, and Windows are notoriously chatty. There's lots of traffic flowing everywhere. We need to understand what's flowing where, who has access to what. Just because you're within the same VNet and potentially the same subnet doesn't mean actually I need access to it. Making sure we enforce NSGs and peering, and we control our estate is key to having a mature security model over this as well. Making sure we use tagging and monitoring as well, which would help massively within that, so you understand where traffic is being routed and what behavior it has at all times as well. What other one? Let's quickly ensure. So the last one, making sure that we secure critical services to any virtual networks. So making sure that they're not accessed directly from the public internet, external agencies, or even on-premise resources. So you might be VPNing in. It's still a best practice to make sure they're not directly accessed via an outside agency. So make sure you use transit subnets and peered groups to make sure that you get access to the resources you need, but they're in depth, and you have an ability to monitor, turn on, turn off, control access at all points as well. So it's not natively exposed to an external network or an external resource. Quickly move on to the monitoring aspect. So it's understanding what's happening at all times. So like I said earlier, it's all well and good, these rules being deployed everywhere and metrics being gathered, but without the collection of this data, without an understanding of what it is we're looking at, really leaves you on the back foot. So monitoring is as important as in enforcing some of these controls as well. So we want to be able to make sure that we understand where there's areas of risk or potential vulnerabilities. Monitor will allow us to collect that data from trusted sources. So we could collect it from everywhere. We could just collect it from firewalls, network virtual appliances, or hosts themselves. But more importantly, we can use that in conjunction with something like Azure Security Center, which will elevate the usefulness of the data. So it's not just logs at this point. It starts to provide some intelligence around that as well. It starts to allow us to understand things like our security posture. Things like, so I think I just disconnected there. Things like your security score, gamifying what's open, what's shut, how you can increase that score, what tools you can utilize to help increase that your security posture and ultimately your risk. Governance baselines as well is so important. I mean, lots of us work within regulated industries, whether that be finance, insurance, whatever that is. You have external baselines and governance frameworks that you need to align yourselves to. Having an understanding of what that is and what your environment currently does, it provides a lot of value to your organization as well. So utilizing access to certain resources, so things like GDPR or ISO accreditations, access to data is a key point to making sure that you are in control of that. So making sure we gather data and metrics from that, and we enforce that, and we can demonstrate that through the Security Center. So moving on from actual presentation of data and metrics is Azure Sentinel. I don't know if anyone knows too much about it, but it's a SIAM tool that sits above and kind of alongside everything within Azure and things outside Azure as well. So Sentinel can collect data from on-premise resources, other resources within other clouds, a variety of different sources. That allows us to start hunting and identifying security incidents and cutting through a lot of the noise that's generated. Azure does create a lot of traffic, a lot of metrics that are generated. What Azure Sentinel will do is it allows you to remove all the noise, all the false positives, all the informational alerts that are created, and really kind of tune in on potential vulnerabilities and potential threats. Once they've been highlighted as security incidents, we can then start placing a level of threat response around that, whether that's manual, or I want to be woken up at 3 in the morning if something's happened, or let's put a level of automation to that threat response to mitigate that risk to our organization. So we can develop a real mature security framework around how we identify risk and mitigate that risk. Right, that is the end of my bit as well. I think we're just going to move on to a question part, Liam. Hopefully there's none.
Thank you very much for that, guys. It was really insightful. I'm sure everybody else agrees with me on that one. So as we said, use the Q&A box to ask any questions. So if you do have any pressing ones that you haven't added, please add them now, and we'll run through the ones that we've already got. So first question is from Dave, which might be